"You need protection and I need a wife," the Lakota giant told the lonely teacher. The plasma rounds punched through the classroom wall 3 seconds before Katie Morgan could reach the panic button. She dropped behind her desk as another volley shredded the morning's geography lesson into burning confetti. 26 students screamed in perfect unison. The colony's warning sirens joined them half a beat later. "Under your desks now," Katie shouted, but most of the kids were already moving. She'd drilled them every week since the Crethon raids started hitting the outer colonies. New Dakota had been safe for months. That safety just died with the first explosion. The second wall collapsed inward. Katie saw 4 Crethon shock troops push through the smoke, their chitinous armor gleaming like oil in firelight. They were scanning for adults, for anyone who might coordinate a defense. Their targeting sensors swept the room in geometric patterns. Katie knew the protocol. Teachers were priority targets. Dead teachers meant chaos. Chaos meant easy harvesting. She stood up. The lead Crethon's weapon swung toward her. Katie grabbed the flagpole from its mount and hurled it like a javelin. The metal pole bounced off alien armor without leaving a scratch, but it bought her students 2 seconds to scramble toward the emergency exit. The Crethon fired. Katie threw herself sideways, felt the heat wash past her shoulder. She hit the floor hard, tasted blood, saw stars. The aliens advanced in formation, methodical and unhurried. Then the window exploded. Something massive crashed through the reinforced glass like it was tissue paper. The lead Crethon turned to fire and simply ceased to exist. Katie saw an arm the size of a tree trunk complete its swing, saw purple blood spray across her lesson plans. The remaining 3 aliens opened fire simultaneously. The figure didn't slow down. He was over 7 feet tall, maybe 8, built like a fortress, grew legs, and decided to walk. His skin was weathered bronze, his black hair hung past his shoulders, and he wore what looked like combat armor designed by someone who'd seen too many ancient Earth westerns. He moved through plasma fire like rain, each step deliberate and unstoppable. His fist caught the second Crethon in the thorax. The alien's armor crumpled inward with a sound like a car crash in reverse. The third tried to retreat. A combat knife appeared in the giant's hand, blade dark and cruel. He threw it with casual precision. The Crethon dropped. The fourth alien made it halfway to the door before a massive hand closed around its neck. Katie heard vertebrae pop like firecrackers. Silence fell. The emergency sirens wailed in the distance. Smoke drifted through the destroyed classroom. 26 students stared from beneath their desks at the mountain of a man standing in the center of their classroom. He turned to Katie. His eyes were dark brown, calm as deep water. Blood dripped from his knuckles. He looked her over once, checking for injuries, then nodded to himself. "Get the kids to the shelter," he said. His voice was surprisingly gentle. "More coming." Katie found her feet, found her voice. "Who are you?" "Name's Jacob Whitehorse, Colonial Defense Corps, 2nd Regiment." He pulled his knife from the dead Crethon, wiped it clean on his pants. "You're Catherine Morgan, 5th grade teacher, live alone in residential unit 47, no family on world." Katie felt her blood turn cold for entirely different reasons. "How do you know that?" Jacob smiled. It softened his face, made him look almost human instead of like a walking weapon. "We need to talk. But first, shelter. Move." The building shook. Another explosion. Closer this time. Katie heard weapons fire, screams, the distinctive shriek of Crethon atmospheric fighters. The invasion wasn't a raid anymore. This was an assault. She got her students moving. Jacob followed them out, his eyes constantly scanning. Katie's hands shook as she counted heads. All 26. All alive. The miracle of that wouldn't hit her until later. The shelter doors were closing when they arrived. Jacob put his shoulder against them, held them open with raw strength while Katie shepherded her class through. Other colonists stared at him with a mixture of fear and relief. "You're safe now," Jacob told the students. Then he looked at Katie. "I'll be back. Don't go anywhere." "Where would I go?" Katie demanded. But he was already leaving, already running back toward the sounds of battle. She wanted to believe that was the last she'd see of him. She had a feeling she was very, very wrong. The shelter held 800 colonists and smelled like fear. Katie sat with her students in the education sector, trying to keep them calm while the walls shuddered from nearby explosions. Emergency lighting cast everything in sickly yellow. Someone's baby wouldn't stop crying. The air recyclers hummed too loud, fighting to keep up with too many panicked bodies burning too much oxygen. Katie counted her students for the 15th time. Still 26, still breathing. Small miracles in a universe that seemed fresh out of the big ones. "Miss Morgan?" Little Amy Rodriguez tugged her sleeve. "Is the giant man going to save us?" Katie didn't have an answer. She'd been teaching on New Dakota for 3 years, survived 2 previous raids, and never seen anything like Jacob. The Colonial Defense Corps didn't post soldiers to farming colonies. They barely posted them to the industrial worlds. New Dakota rated a sheriff, 6 deputies, and a militia that drilled twice a month. I hope so, sweetie. The shelter's main screen flickered to life. Director Chen's face appeared, pale and drawn. All residents remain calm. The Colonial Defense Corps has responded to the incursion. Repeat, CDC forces are engaging the enemy. Stay in your designated areas until the all clear is given. That triggered a wave of murmurs. The CDC was 3 systems away. Response time was measured in weeks, not hours. Either Chen was lying to prevent panic, or something very strange was happening. The lights went red. Someone screamed. The building shook hard enough to knock people off their feet. Katie pulled her students close, formed them into a tight group against the wall. Her ears popped from a pressure change. The emergency bulkhead slammed down with hydraulic thunder. Then nothing. Silence so complete it rang in Katie's ears. Even the baby stopped crying. The intercom crackled. Enemy forces neutralized. Repeat, all hostile contacts eliminated. Begin damage assessment and casualty protocols. Emergency services report to triage stations. Katie didn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. Creathon assault forces didn't get neutralized. They got fought to a bloody stalemate if you were lucky. Pushed back after days of urban warfare if you were blessed. They didn't get eliminated in under an hour. The bulkheads lifted. People began moving cautiously toward the exits. Katie kept her students together, moved them as a unit. Professional habits died hard. Outside the shelter, smoke drifted through the colony's main street. Buildings burned, bodies lay scattered in the rubble, human and alien both. But the fighting had stopped. She saw them then. Soldiers in armor she didn't recognize, moving through the streets in perfect coordination. They were enormous, every one of them, built like they'd been grown in the same vat as Jacob Whitehorse. Their armor was decorated with patterns she half recognized from old Earth history files, geometric designs, animal motifs. One had a bear painted across his chest plate, another wore an eagle. "Holy hell!" someone whispered behind her. "That's the Lakota regiment." Katie turned. Old Bill Henderson stood there, his face slack, with something between awe and terror. He'd been a soldier once, back before New Dakota, back when Earth still mattered to people who lived this far out. "The what?" Katie asked. "Lakota Regiment, 2nd CDC. Bill's hands shook. "They're ghosts. Legends. You hear stories in the service? About these guys who hit like the wrath of God and vanish before anyone can confirm they exist. Genetic modifications, combat enhancement, training that breaks most candidates. They don't get deployed to places like this. They get deployed to end wars." Katie watched the soldiers work. They moved through the colony like they owned it, clearing buildings, treating wounded, directing survivors. Every motion was efficient and precise. These weren't peacekeepers. They were weapons-wearing human skin. "Miss Morgan." She turned. Jacob Whitehorse stood behind her, covered in blood and dust. His armor had taken hits that should have killed him. He didn't seem to notice. "Your students are safe," he said. "Not a question. A statement of fact, like he'd personally verified it." "Thanks to you," Katie said. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Jacob nodded once. "Need to talk. Private. I have my class. Other teachers can watch them. This can't wait." Katie looked at her students. Amy Rodriguez was crying quietly. Ben Foster looked like he might throw up. They needed her. But something in Jacob's eyes suggested this conversation was going to happen whether she agreed or not. She got another teacher to take her kids. Followed Jacob through the destroyed colony to a building that was still mostly intact. He led her inside, to an office that belonged to the colonial administrator. The man himself was nowhere to be seen. Jacob closed the door, locked it, turned to face her. Katie's heart hammered. She was alone with a man who'd killed 4 Creathon with his bare hands. A man who knew where she lived, knew she had no family. Every survival instinct she had screamed at her to run. "Sit," Jacob said, gesturing to a chair. "I'd rather stand. Sit, please." Katie sat. Jacob remained standing, looming over her like a mountain casting shadow. He seemed to be choosing his words carefully. "New Dakota's been targeted," he said finally. "Not randomly, specifically. The Creathon have intelligence on your colony's infrastructure, your defenses, your population distribution. This wasn't a raid, it was an assassination attempt." "Assassination of who?" "You." Katie laughed. She couldn't help it. The absurdity was too much. "I'm a teacher. I teach 10-year-olds about continental drift and proper comma usage. Why would anyone want to kill me?" Jacob pulled out a datapad, set it on the desk. Katie saw her own face staring back at her from a colonial intelligence file. Her full name, her credentials, her genetic profile. Her genetic profile. "You're Dr. Catherine Ann Morgan," Jacob said quietly. "Triple doctorate in xenobiology, terraforming science, and ecosystem engineering. You published 17 papers before you turned 30. You were the lead researcher on the New Darwin Project. You designed the atmospheric conversion protocols that made 12 worlds habitable. Then you vanished, changed your name, buried your credentials, took a teaching job on the edge of nowhere. Katie's mouth went dry. She hadn't heard those titles in 3 years, hadn't wanted to hear them. That was a different life, she whispered. Not to the Crethon, they've been hunting you for 18 months. You're the only human who understands their homeworld's ecosystem well enough to destroy it. Our intelligence says they've got a kill team specifically assigned to you. Today was their first attempt. It won't be their last. Katie stood up, paced. Her mind raced through implications, through the sheer cosmic unfairness of it all. She'd left that world behind. Left the politics, the military contracts, the weapons development disguised as peaceful science. She'd wanted to teach children, to build instead of design better ways to break things. So what now? She demanded. You lock me in a bunker? Ship me off-world? What? Protection, Jacob said. Full-time, close quarters. Someone with you every hour of every day. A bodyguard, a husband. Katie stopped pacing, stared at him. Excuse me? Jacob met her eyes. CDC regulations. Agents providing close protection to civilian assets can only cohabitate if married. Prevents complications, establishes legal authority, simplifies chain of command. And I need a wife. That's insane. It's practical. Jacob's expression didn't change. I'm Lakota Regiment. We're bred for combat, trained for war. Relationships don't work for people like me. Women see what we are, what we can do, and they either run or they fetishize it. Neither option ends well. But I'm 38. Command has regulations about that too. Unmarried soldiers over 35 face mandatory psychological evaluation, possible discharge. I need a spouse of record before my next review. Katie sat down again. Her legs wouldn't hold her. Let me get this straight. Alien assassins want me dead. You want to fake marry me for your career? And somehow this is supposed to be a good idea? Not fake, Jacob said. Real marriage, legal and binding. You get protection that actually works. I get to keep my career. We both get what we need. I don't even know you. You know I'll die before I let anything hurt you. That's more than most marriages start with. Katie wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was crazy, that she'd find another way, that she wasn't going to marry a stranger just because the universe had decided to hate her specifically. But she looked at his eyes, at the absolute certainty there, and she knew he meant every word. How long? She asked quietly. Until the Crethon threat is eliminated. Could be months, could be years. And then? Then you decide. Stay married, get divorced, whatever you want. I won't fight it. Katie thought about her classroom, her students, the simple life she'd built here. Thought about 4 dead Crethon and the dozens more that would come. Thought about running again, hiding again. Always looking over her shoulder. I need time to think, she said. You don't have time. The Crethon will regroup and try again within 72 hours. We need to move you to a secure location, get the paperwork filed, establish the legal protection. That starts now or not at all. Tried to find the person she'd been before, the scientist who'd made world-changing decisions on incomplete data. That woman would have calculated the odds, assessed the variables, made the logical choice. That woman had also helped design weapons that killed millions. She opened her eyes. What do I call you? Jacob almost smiled. Jacob works fine. Okay, Jacob, if we do this, we do it right. No lies to each other. No games. We're partners in this. Not owner and property. Agreed. And if I say stop, we stop. If I want out, you let me out. Agreed. Katie stood. Offered her hand. Then I guess we have a wedding to plan. Jacob took her hand. His grip was warm, careful despite his obvious strength. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You're marrying a woman who's been hunted by aliens and hasn't had a date in 3 years. This could go very badly. I've faced worse odds. They stood there, hands clasped, in the ruins of her peaceful life. Outside, the colony burned. Somewhere in the dark between stars, Crethon ships plotted her death. And Katie Morgan, who'd sworn she was done with violence and war, was about to marry a 7-foot weapon in human form. She had a feeling her life was about to get very complicated. The wedding took place in the colony's administrative center, witnessed by Director Chen and 2 of Jacob's regiment members. Katie wore the same clothes she'd worn during the attack, blood-stained and torn. Jacob looked exactly the same as he had in her destroyed classroom. The whole ceremony took 6 minutes. Chen pronounced them married under colonial authority. Jacob signed the certificate with surprisingly neat handwriting. Katie's hand shook when she added her signature. The witnesses, both enormous soldiers with the same modified build as Jacob, nodded their approval. One of them, a woman with tribal patterns shaved into her scalp, actually smiled. "Welcome to the family," she said. Her name tag read, Martinez. Katie didn't feel particularly welcomed. She felt numb, like she was watching this happen to someone else. 24 hours ago, her biggest worry had been teaching fractions to students who thought math was a form of torture. Now she was married to a stranger and running from alien assassins. "We need to move," Jacob said. "Transport's waiting." "Move where?" "Secure facility, 100 kilometers north, underground. You'll be safe there while we extract your research data and relocate you permanently." "I don't have research data anymore. I deleted everything when I left." Jacob looked at her steadily. "Your mind is the research data. You can't delete that." Katie felt cold. She'd been naive, thinking she could just walk away from what she knew. Knowledge like hers didn't disappear because you wanted it to. It was written into her neural patterns, coded into years of education and experience. She could forget her own name before she forgot the equations that could crack a planetary ecosystem. They moved through the colony under armed escort. 6 Lakota Regiment soldiers formed a perimeter around Katie and Jacob, their weapons tracking every shadow. Survivors watched them pass with wary eyes. Katie saw fear there, and something else. Hope, maybe. These soldiers had saved them. Had done the impossible. The transport was military-grade, armored like a tank and twice as fast. Katie climbed inside with Jacob. The interior smelled like oil and recycled air. Seats lined the walls, designed for soldiers twice her size. She strapped in, felt the engines rumble to life. "How many people know?" she asked, as they lifted off. "About me, I mean. About what I used to be. In the CDC, maybe 50. In the general population, no one if we do this right." Jacob settled into the seat beside her, his bulk making the reinforced metal creak. "Your cover held for 3 years. It would have held longer if the Chthon hadn't gotten lucky with a data breach." "Lucky how?" "New Darwin Project files got hacked 8 months ago. The Chthon found references to your work, tracked down your old colleagues, put pieces together. By the time we figured out they were hunting you, they'd already found New Dakota." Katie closed her eyes. New Darwin had been her masterpiece, the pinnacle of her career. She designed atmospheric processors that could take a lifeless rock and turn it into a garden world in a decade. The same technology, reversed and weaponized, could reduce a thriving ecosystem to toxic sludge in months. Of course the Chthon wanted her dead. She was an existential threat to their entire species. "I never wanted this," she said quietly. "I just wanted to help people, make more worlds habitable, give humanity room to grow." "I know." Jacob's voice was gentle. "But that's not how the universe works. Every tool is a weapon if you hold it right. The Chthon know that. Now we have to deal with the consequences." The transport flew north, over farmland turned to ash by the attack. Katie saw fires burning in the distance, emergency crews working in the dark. Her colony, her home, destroyed because she dared to try living a normal life. "Tell me about the Lakota Regiment," she said. Anything to stop thinking about the bodies she'd seen. Jacob was quiet for a moment. "What do you want to know?" "Why Lakota? Why the tribal affiliation?" "Because we're reclaimed." He stared out the window at the burning landscape. "The CDC wanted super soldiers. They took volunteers, mostly from Earth's indigenous populations, people who'd been marginalized, forgotten, written off. They modified us, enhanced us, turned us into weapons. But they let us keep our names, our cultures, called it preserving heritage. Really, it was just good PR. But you stayed. Where else would we go?" Jacob's smile was bitter. "We're too strong for civilian life, too dangerous for normal military service. The Lakota Regiment is family, the only family most of us have." Katie understood that loneliness. She'd left her own family behind when she went into hiding, cut all ties to keep them safe. 3 years of birthday messages unsent, holidays spent alone, achievements unshared. The price of her secrets had been higher than she'd calculated. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" "That you had to give up so much, that the world needs people like you." Jacob turned to look at her. In the transport's dim lighting, his eyes were almost black. "Don't apologize for that. I chose this. Every modified soldier does. We know what we're signing up for. And someone has to stand between civilians and things that want to kill them. Might as well be people who are good at it." The transport began its descent. Katie saw lights below, disguised to look like a mining operation. The entrance opened like a steel mouth, swallowing them into darkness. They dropped through layers of security, past weapon systems that could have vaporized a small army. The facility was enormous. Corridors stretched in every direction, lit by harsh white light. Soldiers moved through the halls with purpose. Katie saw medical bays, armories, training rooms. This wasn't just a safe house. This was a military base. Jacob led her to a residential section. The quarters were surprisingly comfortable. 2 bedrooms, a common area, A small kitchen. Military standard, but designed for long-term habitation. This is home for now, Jacob said. You'll have guards posted outside 24/7. Don't leave without escort. Don't communicate with anyone outside the facility without approval. And don't, under any circumstances, try to access the restricted sections. What's in the restricted sections? Things you don't need to know about. Katie bristled at that. She'd spent her career needing to know about things, diving into classified projects and restricted research. Being told to stay ignorant felt like being told to stop breathing. I'm not a child, Jacob. I'm your wife, apparently. That means partners, remember? No lies, no games. Jacob's expression softened slightly. You're right. I'm sorry. Old habits, the restricted section's house weapons research, strategic planning, and intelligence operations. Nothing that affects you directly, but plenty that could get you killed if the wrong people knew you had access. The Creathon already want me dead. Other people too. Human corporations, rival governments, criminal syndicates. Your knowledge is valuable. That makes you a target for everyone, not just the aliens. Katie sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had kept her moving was fading, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness. She'd been attacked, married, and uprooted in less than a day. Her hands still shook when she held them up to the light. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. Jacob sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. You already did the hard part. You survived. Everything else is just details. Details like being married to a stranger? Like hiding in a bunker while aliens hunt me? Like abandoning my students? Your students are alive because of you. You got them to shelter. That matters. Katie wanted to argue, but she was too tired. She leaned back against the couch, closed her eyes, felt Jacob's presence beside her, solid and unwavering. He could kill her with one hand, probably without even meaning to. But something in his voice, his careful movements, his respect for her space, suggested he never would. What happens now? She asked. Now you rest. Tomorrow we start planning your relocation, your new identity, your long-term security. And I start teaching you how to defend yourself. I'm not a soldier. You don't need to be. You just need to be able to buy time if something goes wrong. A few seconds can mean the difference between life and death. Katie opened her eyes, looked at him, really looked, past the size and the scars and the obvious danger, saw a man who'd been molded into a weapon, but chose, somehow, to remain human underneath it all. Why did you really agree to this? She asked. The marriage, I mean. You could have just protected me without all that. Jacob met her gaze. Because you deserve better than being a mission objective. You deserve to be a person, with rights and autonomy and choices. Being my wife means I can't just order you around. Means you have legal standing, protection under military law, access to resources. It makes you safer. That's very noble. It's pragmatic. Nobles get people killed. Pragmatists keep them alive. Katie almost smiled at that. And the part about needing a wife for your career evaluation? Also true. I'm not good at lying. Seemed easier to just tell you everything and let you decide. Most men would have tried charming me first, maybe bought me dinner. Most men aren't 7 feet tall and designed to break things. Charm isn't really in my skill set. This time Katie did smile. It felt strange on her face, given everything that had happened. But something about Jacob's blunt honesty was refreshing. No manipulation, no hidden agendas. Just brutal pragmatism wrapped in surprising kindness. Okay, she said, we'll try this. But I have conditions. Name 'em. First, I want updates on my students, regular reports that they're safe. Second, I want access to educational materials. If I'm going to be stuck here, I might as well keep my mind sharp. Third, I want honesty, always, even when it's hard. Done, and done. Jacob stood. I'll arrange the reports tonight. The library here is extensive, and I've never been good at dishonesty anyway. He moved toward one of the bedrooms, then paused. Katie? Thank you for trusting me enough to try. Don't thank me yet. This could still blow up spectacularly. I've survived worse explosions. He left her alone in a common area. Katie sat in the silence, processing everything that had happened. 24 hours ago, she'd been Katie Morgan, schoolteacher. Now she was Dr. Catherine Ann Morgan, fugitive scientist and wife to a genetically modified super soldier. Her life had definitely taken a turn. She wondered if she'd ever get used to it. 3 weeks in the facility taught Katie that military efficiency was both a blessing and a curse. Everything ran on schedule, from meals to training to security rotations. Nothing was left to chance. It was orderly, predictable, and mind-numbingly boring. Jacob, to his credit, tried to make it bearable. He brought her books from the library, approved her requests for science journals, arranged virtual meetings with her students. The kids were doing well, absorbed into other classes, mostly recovered from the trauma. That helped. Not enough, but something. The defense training was harder. Jacob pushed her through basic combat drills every morning, teaching her pressure points, escape techniques, how to use everyday objects as weapons. Katie hated every minute of it. She was a scientist, not a fighter. Her hands were meant for holding pipettes and data pads, not striking at vital organs. But she learned anyway, because Jacob was right. A few seconds could mean everything. "You're getting better," he said after a particularly brutal session. Katie was sprawled on the training mat, gasping for air. Her muscles screamed in protest. "I'm getting deader," she wheezed. "You just threw me across the room." "Gently, gently," Katie laughed despite herself. "Your idea of gentle could hospitalize most people." Jacob offered his hand. Katie took it, let him pull her upright. His grip was careful, measured. He'd learned how to modulate his strength around her, how to touch without crushing. It was oddly endearing, watching this mountain of a man treat her like she was made of glass. "We're done for today," he said. "Go clean up. We have a briefing in an hour." "Briefing about what?" "Your relocation. The brass finally approved your new identity and placement." Katie's stomach dropped. She'd known this was coming, that she couldn't hide in the facility forever. But 3 weeks had created an illusion of safety, of stability. The idea of leaving, of starting over again, filled her with dread. She showered quickly, changed into clean clothes, met Jacob in the briefing room. 3 senior officers waited there, their uniforms decorated with enough medals to stock a small museum. One of them, a woman with steel-gray hair and eyes like chips of ice, gestured for Katie to sit. "Dr. Morgan, I'm Commander Harrison, CDC Strategic Operations. We have finalized your relocation parameters." Katie sat. Jacob stood behind her, a silent presence. She could feel his attention, his protective instincts on high alert. "Where am I going?" she asked. Harrison pulled up a holographic display. A planet materialized above the table, blue and green and beautiful. "New Haven, Colony World, population 2 million, heavy industrial base. You'll be placed as a senior environmental consultant for the Terraforming Authority. It's a legitimate position that uses your expertise without attracting attention. And when the Crethon find me again? They won't. New Haven has military-grade orbital defenses and a permanent CDC garrison. You'll be one of 50,000 government employees lost in the bureaucracy. Your new identity is airtight. New biometrics, new history, new everything." Katie studied the planet. It looked peaceful, safe. The kind of place she might actually be able to build a life. "What about Jacob?" "Lieutenant Whitehorse will accompany you as your spouse. He'll maintain his military status, but operate under civilian cover. To the outside world, he's a private security consultant. In reality, he's your permanent protection detail." Jacob shifted slightly behind her. Katie couldn't read his expression, but she sensed tension in his stance. "How permanent?" she asked. "Until the Crethon threat is neutralized or you're no longer considered a high-value target. Could be years." Harrison's eyes flicked to Jacob. "The lieutenant has been briefed on the long-term nature of this assignment." Katie turned to look at Jacob. "You agreed to this? Years of pretending to be a civilian? Babysitting me?" "I agreed to protect you," Jacob said simply. "The location doesn't matter. But your regiment, your team, you'd be giving all that up. Temporary reassignment. I'll rotate back when the mission's complete." Katie wanted to argue, to tell him this was too much, that he shouldn't sacrifice his entire career for her. But she saw the determination in his eyes, the absolute certainty. He'd made his choice. She just had to learn to live with it. "When do we leave?" she asked Harrison. 72 hours. Transport's already scheduled. You'll travel under commercial credentials, take a civilian liner to New Haven. No military escort, no obvious protection. Everything has to look normal. Normal, except for the 7-foot modified soldier posing as my husband. Harrison actually smiled at that. People don't look at happy couples too closely. Play the part well enough, and you'll disappear into the background. The briefing continued for another hour. Details about their cover story, their new names, their employment contracts. Katie absorbed it all mechanically, her mind already racing ahead to the implications. She'd be Dr. Sarah Brennan, environmental consultant. Jacob would be Marcus Brennan, security specialist. They'd live in a nice apartment in the capital city, attend social functions, blend in perfectly. It was a new kind of prison, she realized. Comfortable, well-appointed, but still a cage. After the briefing, Jacob walked her back to their quarters. They'd fallen into a routine over the past weeks. A careful dance of coexistence. Separate bedrooms, shared meals, conversations that stayed safely professional. Neither of them mentioned that they were married, that in the eyes of the law and the military, they were bound to each other. "You don't have to do this," Katie said as they reached their door. "I can request a different protection detail. Someone less what? Important. Your Lakota regiment. You should be out there fighting, not playing house with me." Jacob opened the door, ushered her inside. The Crethon want you dead because of what you know. If they succeed, they'll reverse engineer your research and use it against humanity. Protecting you is protecting billions of people. That's more important than any single battle. That's command talking. What do you think? Jacob was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than usual. I think you're a person who deserves to live without fear. I think you gave up everything to try being normal, and the universe punished you for it. And I think if I can give you even a fraction of that normal life back, it's worth whatever I have to sacrifice. Katie felt something crack in her chest. She'd spent 3 weeks watching this man, learning his patterns, his habits. He was meticulous about her safety, but careless with his own. He trained until exhaustion pushed himself beyond reasonable limits, carried the weight of her survival like it was his personal responsibility. He was lonely, just like her. Maybe that's why Command had chosen him for this assignment. 2 lonely people, thrown together by necessity, might actually make it work. Thank you, she said quietly, for everything. I know I don't say it enough. You don't need to say it at all. It's what I signed up for. No, you signed up to be a soldier. This is something else. Jacob met her eyes. What is it then? Katie didn't have an answer. Or maybe she did, but she wasn't ready to voice it yet. The space between protection and care was narrower than she'd thought. The line between professional and personal was starting to blur. I don't know, she said finally, but I think we'll figure it out. New Haven was beautiful in the way only terraformed worlds could be. Everything was carefully planned, deliberately designed. The cities were clean and efficient. The countryside was meticulously managed. Even the weather followed predictable patterns, engineered for optimal agricultural output. Katie hated it immediately. She'd grown up on Earth, in a small town where nature was messy and chaotic and wonderfully unpredictable. New Dakota had reminded her of that, with its wild storms and untamed prairies. New Haven felt sterile by comparison, like living inside a perfectly maintained museum. But it was safe. The orbital platforms hung in the sky like steel moons, bristling with weapons. CDC patrols were everywhere, visible and reassuring. If the Crethon wanted to attack her here, they'd need a full invasion force. The apartment was nice. Spacious, well-furnished, located in a quiet neighborhood filled with other government employees. Katie unpacked her minimal belongings while Jacob conducted a security sweep. He checked every window, every access point, every possible entry route. Old habits, he said. She didn't argue. Their cover story was simple. They'd met on a colony world, fallen in love, gotten married quickly. Marcus worked private security for various corporate clients. Sarah consulted on environmental projects. They were new to New Haven but eager to put down roots. People believed it without question. Why wouldn't they? Happy couples were boring. They didn't attract attention or suspicion. Katie started her job at the Terraforming Authority 3 days after arrival. The work was legitimate, reviewing atmospheric composition reports and recommending adjustment protocols. It was boring compared to her old research, but it used her knowledge without raising flags. She could have done it in her sleep. The social aspects were harder. Her coworkers invited her to lunch, asked about her husband, wanted to know personal details. Katie, who'd spent 3 years avoiding personal connections, had to learn how to fake friendship. It was exhausting. Jacob handled it better. He had a natural ease with people when he wanted to. He'd chat with neighbors, attend social functions, play the part of the devoted husband. Katie watched him transform from a lethal weapon into someone's friendly neighbor, and she marveled at the act. Except she was starting to suspect it wasn't entirely an act. You're good at this, she said one evening. They'd just returned from a neighborhood gathering, something about welcoming new residents. Jacob had charmed everyone, made them laugh, diffused awkward moments with perfect timing. Good at what? He was making dinner, moving through the kitchen with the same precision he brought to everything. Being normal. Being Marcus instead of Jacob. They're not that different. Marcus is just the version of me that didn't get enhanced and militarized. You think about that? What you'd be like if you'd chosen differently? Jacob's hand stilled on the cutting board. Sometimes, usually late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder if I'd be happier. Less capable, but more human. You're plenty human, Jacob. Am I? I can bend steel bars, break bones with a touch. I've killed more people than I can count. That's not exactly normal human experience. Katie moved closer, drawn by the pain in his voice. She'd never heard him sound vulnerable before. Being human isn't about what your body can do. It's about choosing kindness when you could choose cruelty. Caring about others even when it costs you. You do that every day. Jacob turned to look at her. They were close now, closer than they'd been since the wedding. Katie could see the details of his face, the small scars, the lines around his eyes. He looked older up close. Tired. You make it sound noble, he said quietly. It's not. I'm just doing my job. Your job is protection, not cooking me dinner or listening to me complain about my coworkers or pretending to care about neighborhood politics. You do those things because you choose to. Maybe I'm just method acting, staying in character. Maybe. Or maybe you're a better person than you give yourself credit for." They stood there, the kitchen warm and smelling of cooking food, the evening light slanting through the windows. Katie realized this was the most domestic moment they'd shared. It felt real in a way the past month hadn't. Jacob broke eye contact first, went back to cooking. "Dinner in 10 minutes, I'll set the table." They ate in comfortable silence. This was new too, the lack of need for constant conversation. They'd learned each other's rhythms, developed a shorthand that didn't require words. Katie found herself relaxing in ways she hadn't since the attack. After dinner, they settled into their evening routine. Katie read scientific journals while Jacob reviewed security reports. Separate activities, shared space. It worked. "Katie?" Jacob's voice interrupted her reading. "Yeah? Do you ever regret it, agreeing to this?" Katie considered the question. She thought about her classroom, her students, the simple life she'd lost, thought about the fear and the running and the constant vigilance, thought about sitting here, safe and warm, with someone who'd die before letting her be harmed. "Sometimes," she said honestly, "I regret that the universe put me in a position where this was necessary, but I don't regret choosing you as my partner in it." Jacob nodded slowly. "That's good. Because I don't regret it either." They didn't speak of it again that night, but something had shifted between them, subtle as a change in air pressure before a storm. The marriage that had started as pure practicality was becoming something else, something neither of them had quite planned for. Katie wasn't sure if that terrified her or gave her hope, possibly both. 6 months on New Haven brought a rhythm that almost felt like normalcy. Katie excelled at her job, earning respect from colleagues who had no idea they were working with one of the most brilliant xenobiologists in human space. Jacob maintained their cover perfectly, taking security contracts that kept him visible but not suspicious. They attended social functions, made friends, or reasonable facsimiles thereof, built a life that looked convincing from the outside, and slowly, carefully, they built something real between them. It started with small things. Jacob learning how Katie took her coffee, Katie noticing when Jacob was having nightmares and sitting with him until the shaking stopped. Shared jokes, comfortable silences, moments of genuine laughter. One evening, Katie came home to find Jacob in the kitchen, attempting to bake. Flour covered every surface. The smell of burning was unmistakable. "What are you doing?" she asked, trying not to laugh. "Making you a birthday cake. It's going badly." Katie blinked. "How did you know it's my birthday?" "It's in your file. Also, you mentioned it last month. I pay attention." He'd remembered. More than that, he'd cared enough to try making something himself despite obviously having no baking skills whatsoever. Katie felt warmth spread through her chest. "The cake's on fire," she pointed out. "I noticed." They put out the small fire together, ordered takeout instead. Ate dinner with the ruined cake sitting on the counter like a monument to good intentions gone wrong. Katie couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed so hard. "Thank you," she said, when she could breathe again. "This is the best birthday I've had in years, even with the fire, especially with the fire." Jacob smiled, the expression transforming his normally serious face. "Next year I'll learn to bake properly." Next year, the words hung between them, carrying weight neither acknowledged. Next year implied a future, implied they'd still be together, still be doing this. The temporary arrangement was becoming permanent in ways that had nothing to do with Crethon assassins or military regulations. Katie found herself thinking about Jacob constantly. The way he moved through space with impossible grace, the gentle care he took with everything fragile, the intelligence behind his eyes that people often missed because they were too busy seeing his size and strength. She was falling for him. The realization hit her one morning while watching him make breakfast, his massive frame somehow fitting perfectly into their domestic kitchen. She was falling for her fake husband, her military-assigned protection detail, the man who was supposed to be a temporary solution to a tactical problem. It should have terrified her. Instead, it felt inevitable. "Jacob," she said before she could overthink it, "do you ever think about what happens when this is over, when the Crethon threat is neutralized?" Jacob's hand stilled on the pan. He didn't turn around. "Sometimes." "What do you think about?" "I think about how the mission will end, how I'll get reassigned, how you'll build the life you actually want instead of the one you were forced into. And what if the life I want includes you?" Now he turned, looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Katie, I know this wasn't supposed to be real. I know we did this for practical reasons, for survival and regulations and all the logical stuff, but somewhere along the way, it became real for me. You became real for me. I'm not good at this, Jacob said quietly. Relationships, feelings, all of it. I was built to be a weapon, programmed for violence. I don't know how to be what you need. You're already what I need. You're kind and patient and you make me laugh. You remember my birthday and try to bake even though you're terrible at it. You're exactly what I need. Jacob crossed the space between them in 2 long strides, stood in front of her, towering but not threatening. You deserve someone whole. Someone who wasn't modified and broken and put back together wrong. You're not broken, and I don't want someone else. I want you. He touched her face, his large hand, impossibly gentle against her cheek. This isn't the life you chose. No, Katie agreed. It's better than the life I chose. Because you're in it. Jacob kissed her then. Careful and questioning, Katie kissed back, answering with certainty. This was real. This was right. This was everything she hadn't known she needed. When they finally broke apart, Jacob rested his forehead against hers. I don't know how to do this, he whispered. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. The mission might last years. Good. That's more time with you. Jacob laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. You're supposed to be the smart one. Falling for your bodyguard is terrible strategy. Maybe I'm tired of strategy. Maybe I just want to be happy. I can work with that. They stood there wrapped around each other while breakfast burned on the stove. Katie didn't care. She'd spent years running, hiding, pretending to be someone else. For the first time in forever, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The apartment's security alarm woke them at 3 a.m. Katie jerked awake, disoriented and terrified. Beside her, Jacob was already moving, rolling out of bed with fluid grace. Stay here, he ordered, pulling on clothes with rapid efficiency. Lock the bedroom door behind me. Don't come out until I say it's clear. What's happening? Perimeter breach. Could be nothing. Could be everything. He grabbed weapons from hidden caches, moved to the door, paused to look back at her. I love you. Remember that. Then he was gone. Katie locked the door with shaking hands, heard movement in the apartment, careful footsteps, the slight sound of displaced air. Jacob moving in silence, clearing rooms. Then gunfire. The distinctive crack of plasma weapons, the heavier boom of kinetic rounds. Katie's heart hammered. She grabbed her emergency comm device, activated the panic signal. Help would come, eventually, if Jacob could hold them off long enough. More gunfire. Something heavy hit a wall. Glass shattered. Katie heard Jacob's voice, a battle cry that was pure rage and determination. Heard answering sounds, alien clicks and hisses. Crethon. They'd found her. The bedroom door exploded inward. Katie screamed, scrambled backward. A Crethon shock trooper forced its way through, chitinous armor gleaming in the emergency lighting. Its weapon tracked toward her. Then Jacob was there, crashing through the wall like it was paper. He hit the Crethon from the side, his momentum carrying them both across the room. They went through the window in a shower of glass and synthesized metal. Katie heard them hit the ground 3 stories below, heard more gunfire, heard Jacob roaring in pain and fury. She ran to the window, looked down into chaos. 4 Crethons surrounded Jacob, pouring fire into him at point-blank range. His armor was shredded, blood flowing from a dozen wounds. But he was still standing, still fighting, every punch breaking alien bones. CDC reinforcements arrived in a screaming shuttle. Soldiers dropped from the sky, their weapons lighting up the night. The Crethon tried to retreat. Jacob didn't let them. He moved through them like judgment incarnate, each strike precise and lethal. When it was over, when the last Crethon lay broken and bleeding, Jacob collapsed. Katie was already running. She took the stairs 3 at a time, burst out into the street. Soldiers tried to stop her. She pushed past them, dropped to her knees beside Jacob. His eyes found hers. You're safe, he whispered. Blood bubbled at his lips. Don't you dare, Katie said. Don't you dare leave me. We just figured this out. You don't get to die now. Not dying, just resting. You're bleeding everywhere. Details. Jacob's hand found hers. His grip was weak, trembling. Love you, meant that. I know, I love you too. So you're gonna stay alive and tell me that again when you're not full of holes. Medical teams swarmed around them. Katie was pulled away, protesting. She watched them work on Jacob, watched them stabilize and sedate and load him onto a trauma stretcher. Watched the shuttle take him away. Commander Harrison appeared beside her. Dr. Morgan. Are you injured? No. How's Jacob? Critical, but stable. Lakota Regiment soldiers are hard to kill. He'll survive. Katie felt relief so intense it made her dizzy. What happens now? Now we relocate you again. The Crethon found this safe house. They'll find the next one. This can't continue. I'm tired of running. The alternative is dying. Katie looked at the destruction around her. At the dead Crithon, the damaged building, the blood on the pavement, Jacob's blood, spilled protecting her. "There has to be another way," she said. "Some solution that doesn't involve hiding forever while the people I love bleed for me." Harrison studied her. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it's time to stop being prey. Time to become the weapon the Crethon are afraid of." "Explain." Katie's mind raced through possibilities, through equations and theories she'd buried years ago. "Give me access to my old research. Full access, no restrictions. And give me a team. People who understand xenobiology, atmospheric science, ecosystem engineering. You want to weaponize your own work? I want to make the Crethon regret ever hunting me. I want to hit them so hard they'll spend generations recovering. And I want to do it in a way that saves human lives instead of costing them." Harrison was quiet for a long moment. "That's a fundamental shift in strategy. I'd need authorization from the highest levels. Then get it. Because I'm done hiding. I'm done watching good people die for my mistakes. It's time to finish this." "And Lieutenant Whitehorse?" Katie felt steel enter her spine. "He gets the best medical care available. And when he's recovered, he can decide if he wants to keep protecting me or if he's done enough. He won't leave you." "I know, but I'll give him the choice anyway." Harrison nodded slowly. "I'll make the calls. In the meantime, you're coming with me. Secure location, full protection, no more civilian cover." Katie took one last look at the apartment that had been her home, her prison, her sanctuary, where she'd learned to be happy again, where she'd fallen in love. "Let's go," she said. "We have work to do." The war room deep beneath New Haven's capital was cold and sterile. Katie stood at the head of a conference table, facing 15 of the best scientific minds the CDC could assemble on short notice. Xenobiologists, atmospheric specialists, chemical warfare experts, people who understood what she was proposing. People who looked at her with a mixture of awe and horror. "You want to crack their homeworld," Dr. Chen said flatly. The physicist looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Render it uninhabitable." "Not uninhabitable," Katie corrected. "Economically and militarily non-viable. The Crethon Empire is built on a specific atmospheric composition that allows their industrial base to function. Change that composition, and their manufacturing capability collapses. No manufacturing means no weapons, no ships, no capacity to wage war." "How long would the effects last?" asked Peterson, the chemical engineer. "Decades, possibly centuries. The atmospheric cascade I'm proposing is self-sustaining once triggered. They could reverse it, but it would require resources they won't have without their industrial infrastructure." Silence fell. Katie let them process it. She knew what she was proposing was monstrous. She was advocating for the environmental destruction of an entire planet, the economic collapse of a civilization. Billions of Crethon would suffer. But billions of humans would live. "The ethical implications," someone started, "are significant," Katie agreed. "This is not a decision to be made lightly. But the Crethon have been systematically exterminating human colonies for 20 years. They've killed millions of us. They'll kill millions more if we don't stop them. And traditional warfare hasn't worked. They're too numerous, too well established." "So we become them?" Chen demanded. "We commit planetary-scale atrocity?" "No. We make them understand that continuing this war has consequences they can't tolerate. We give them a reason to negotiate, to seek peace. Right now, they have no incentive to stop. We're an inconvenience, not a threat. That changes if we can hurt them where they live. It's genocide. It's targeted environmental disruption. No Crethon has to die from this. They'll have time to evacuate, to relocate, to adapt, but their war machine dies. Their capacity to project force across space dies, and the killing stops." The debate raged for hours. Katie answered every question, addressed every concern, laid out the science with brutal clarity. She showed them the calculations, the models, the projections, showed them exactly what would happen if they deployed her weapon. In the end, Commander Harrison made the decision. "We proceed, but under strict protocols. No deployment without authorization from the Joint Chiefs. No targeting of civilian population centers. And Dr. Morgan retains final say on the technical implementation." Katie nodded. "Understood. I'll need 6 months for development, another 3 for testing. And I want regular updates on Lieutenant Whitehorse's recovery." "He's awake," Harrison said. "Asking for you." Katie's heart leapt. "Can I see him?" "After this meeting." "He's in medical level 7. The meeting adjourned. Katie's team dispersed to begin preliminary work. She took the elevator down to medical, her hands shaking. She'd been so focused on the work, on the solution, that she'd pushed down her fear for Jacob. Now it came flooding back. He was in a private room surrounded by monitoring equipment. Most of his torso was wrapped in regenerative bandages. Synthetic skin grafts covered burns and lacerations. But he was conscious, and when he saw her, He smiled. "Hey," he said. His voice was rough, damaged. "Hey yourself." Katie pulled a chair close, took his hand carefully. "You look terrible. Feel worse. But alive. Thanks to you." "Thanks to me?" "Jacob, you nearly died protecting me." "Exactly. You gave me something worth protecting. That's the best gift anyone's ever given me." Katie felt tears burning. "I'm ending this. The running, the hiding, all of it. I'm making sure the Chthon never threaten you or anyone else again." "I heard. They're calling it the Morgan Protocol. Very dramatic. It's monstrous is what it is. It's necessary." Jacob squeezed her hand with what little strength he had. "You're saving lives, Katie. Human lives. That's not monstrous. That's heroic." "I don't feel heroic. I feel tired." "Then rest. I'm not going anywhere. Doctors say I'll be here for weeks. You can work and come visit. We'll figure out the next steps together." Katie leaned forward, kissed his forehead. "I love you, even when you're an idiot who throws himself through walls for me. Especially then, that's when I'm most lovable." She stayed with him until the nurses made her leave. Then she went back to the war room, back to the equations and models and terrible calculations. She was building a weapon that would change the course of human history. That would end a war, but cost her whatever moral high ground she'd clung to. But Jacob was alive. Her students were safe. And she was done being a victim. If becoming a weapon was the price of protecting the people she loved, Katie Morgan would pay it gladly. The Chthon homeworld was called Krethana in their language. It meant eternal garden. Katie thought the name was bitterly ironic as she watched the targeting data scroll across her screen. 9 months of development had led to this moment. The Morgan Protocol was ready for deployment. 3 autonomous atmospheric processors, each one smaller than a person, capable of triggering a cascade reaction that would fundamentally alter Krethana's atmosphere. No explosions, no immediate deaths. Just slow, inexorable environmental change. The Joint Chiefs had approved the strike. The fleet was in position. All that remained was Katie's final authorization. Jacob stood beside her in the command center, finally cleared for active duty. His injuries had healed, leaving new scars across scars. He looked harder now, older. But his eyes were still gentle when they found hers. "You don't have to do this yourself," he said quietly. "Someone else can give the order." "No. If this happens, it happens because I decided. I won't hide from that responsibility." On the main screen, Admiral Richards waited for her signal. His face was impassive, professional. Behind him, Katie could see the bridge of the flagship, officers at their stations ready to make history. "Dr. Morgan," Richards said, "we're in position. Processors are armed and targeted, awaiting your authorization." Katie thought about her classroom on New Dakota, about her students' faces as Chthon weapons tore through the walls, about Jacob bleeding in the street, dying to keep her alive, about the millions of humans killed in this endless war. She thought about the Chthon civilians who would suffer when their world changed, the children who would grow up in economic collapse, the families torn apart by forced relocation. She thought about the fact that sometimes there were no good choices, only less terrible ones. "Authorization granted," she said. Her voice didn't shake. "Deploy the Morgan Protocol." Richards nodded. "Acknowledged. Deploying in 3 seconds. 1. Launch confirmed. Time to atmospheric integration. 48 hours. Katie watched the tactical display as 3 small objects detached from the fleet began their descent toward Krethana. They looked insignificant, barely visible against the planet's blue-green atmosphere. In 48 hours, that atmosphere would begin its transformation. Oxygen levels would shift, temperature patterns would change. The delicate balance that allowed Chthon industry to function would collapse, and the war would effectively be over. "Now what?" Jacob asked. "Now we wait. See if the Chthon sue for peace or double down on revenge." They didn't have to wait long. 6 hours after deployment, Chthon Command transmitted on all human frequencies. A single message, repeated in multiple languages. "We agree to immediate cessation of hostilities. We request diplomatic contact to discuss terms." The command center erupted in cheers. Katie felt nothing. Just a hollow emptiness where her certainty used to be. "You did it," Jacob said. "You ended the war. I destroyed a world to do it. You saved countless human lives. That matters." Katie turned away from the screen, from the celebrations, from the weight of what she did. "I need air." Jacob followed her to the observation deck. They stood at the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Chthon were watching their homeworld die. Somewhere else, human colonies were receiving word that they were finally safe. "Do you hate me?" Katie asked quietly. "For what I've become." Jacob pulled her close. "I love you. That hasn't changed. Won't ever change. I used to save worlds. Now I destroy them. You did what was necessary, what no one else could do. That took more courage than anything I've ever seen. Katie leaned into his warmth, let herself feel for the first time since giving the order. The grief, the guilt, the terrible knowledge that she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. But also the relief, the hope, the possibility that maybe, finally, people could stop dying. "What happens now?" she asked. "To us, I mean. The mission's over. You don't need to protect me anymore. The mission might be over. The marriage isn't. Unless you want it to be." Katie looked up at him, at this man who had become her anchor, her partner, her everything. "I want it to be real, not fake, not tactical. Real." "It's been real for months, Katie. We just pretended it wasn't." "Then let's stop pretending. Let's actually build the life we want instead of the one we were assigned." Jacob kissed her, gentle and sure. "I can work with that." 3 weeks later, peace negotiations concluded. The Crethon agreed to withdraw from all disputed territories, pay reparations, and submit to UN oversight of their atmospheric restoration efforts. In exchange, humanity would provide technical assistance and economic support during the transition period. Katie was hailed as a hero and condemned as a war criminal, often by the same people. She didn't read the news anymore, didn't engage with the debates about her actions. She'd made her choice. She'd live with it. She and Jacob resigned from the CDC, bought a small house on a quiet colony world, far from politics and military obligations. Katie took a teaching position at a local school. Jacob opened a security consulting business that mostly involved him helping elderly neighbors with home repairs. They were happy, genuinely, surprisingly happy. One evening, Katie found Jacob in the garden, attempting to grow vegetables. He was terrible at it. She loved watching him try. "I was thinking," he said, not looking up from the tomato plant he was definitely overwatering, "about the future. What about it? We could adopt. Kids who need families. Give them the stability we never had." Katie's breath caught. "You want to be a father? I want to build something instead of destroy. Thought maybe we could do that together." Katie knelt beside him in the dirt, took his hands, dirty and scarred and gentle. "Yes, let's build something beautiful." Years passed. They adopted 3 children, all war orphans, all damaged, in different ways. They built a home filled with laughter and healing. Jacob proved to be an unexpectedly good father, patient and kind and endlessly creative at dealing with childhood chaos. Katie taught, raised her family for a second, published papers under her real name, reclaiming her identity without fear. The Crethon peace held. New trade agreements fostered understanding between species. The scars remained, but wounds were healing. On their 10th anniversary, Jacob surprised her with a renewal ceremony. Just the 2 of them and their children standing in their garden under alien stars. "You saved my life," Jacob said during his vows. "Not by protecting me, by giving me something worth living for. You're my mission, my purpose, my home." "You gave me back myself," Katie replied. "Reminded me that strength isn't just about knowledge or power, it's about choosing love when the universe demands hate. You're my partner, my anchor, my heart." They kissed while their children cheered, and Katie thought about the strange path that had led them here. The violence, the fear, the impossible choices, the way something born from necessity had transformed into genuine love. She'd destroyed a world to save her own. She'd married a stranger to survive. And somehow, impossibly, she'd found happiness in the ruins of everything she'd lost. The universe was cruel and random and often unfair, but sometimes in the spaces between tragedy and hope, something beautiful could grow. Katie Morgan, scientist and teacher and wife and mother, had learned that lesson well, and she was finally, truly home.